up, everybody? Paul Abernathy here. Welcome to another episode of Master the NEC, as well as the Fast Track system. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to join me. On this episode, we are going to be dissecting some code questions. Now, many people watch my videos, and I've been teaching the National Electrical Code as well as exam prep for nearly 40 years. I've taught over 80,000 students, and I'm the founder of Electrical Code Academy and the creator of the Fast Tracks system, which is a system that combines not just the National Electrical Code, but it moves you in and out of the NEC, gives you some great end-of-unit questions. It adds database questions in there. And if you get our enhanced program, it also adds videos over on the Fast Tracks tube. All of that combined together creates a system that teaches you the National Electrical Code. And that's what our system's about. It's not just about any one exam prep database or questions or anything. It's about the cumulative system that we put together through the years. And so that's why so many people come to the Fast Track system to learn the National Electrical Code. We also have grounding and bonding, and we have post-licensing NEC courses as well. And we also have certified thermal electrician programs as well if you want to add thermography to your portfolio as an electrical contractor. We have all that. So if we'd love to have you visit us over at fasttracksystem.com. Hey, today's video is going to be frustrating for some people because they want to go quickly. And it seems like today everybody just wants to go so quickly, and they go, Paul, just show the question and let me get the answer and move on. I'm going to disappoint you today, because today we're going to be focusing on how to dissect a question. And I think it's critical for you to understand how to look at a code question, how to dissect it, how to look it up in the NEC, because I can give you 10 million questions. But if you don't understand the fundamentals to looking up a question, then you're always going to struggle. Now, it's not just for an exam. Out in the field, if you need to find something in the code book, you need to understand systematically how you can go through a question, whether it's an exam question or a real world question, how to find those answers. And so we're kind of going to talk about that in today's episode. But I'll remind you, if the colors look different here, everything looks a little different. We're here in 2026. I need to make sure you do something. I need you to subscribe, because we have a lot more of dedicated exam prep content coming right here to this channel. And I'm going to take you through all types of things that have to do with an exam prep and take you to that experience. But today we're going to be focusing on dissection, and we're going to look at code questions. Y'all ready? All right, let's get into some code questions, and we'll start breaking them down. All right, here's the very first question that we have to break down. And this might look very familiar to some of you if you're in our Fast Tracks program. Again, this database of questions is available as a standalone, or you get it included with your Fast Tracks system purchase. All right, so first question is the maximum length. Okay, so we're looking for a maximum length for the supply cord of a 240 volt room air conditioner. Okay, so there's a couple things that we do with this question. When we're on an exam, and remember, for all of you out there that say, Paul, I only got 2 minutes to answer it, why are you taking so long in this question? You're in the wrong place, because that is not what these videos are about. That's when you buy database questions. Right here, we're showing you how to use database questions or exam style questions to find the answer, or how to take a question and break it down. That's what this episode's about, okay? All right, so couple things is we're looking for what's called the root or target words in here. Well, the first thing is it's asking about the maximum length of something specific, and that is the supply cord. The supply cord of what? A room air conditioner. So it's an air conditioner, and it is first and foremost, it's an air conditioner, but it is the room type air conditioner, okay? So this is one that's obviously going to have a supply cord, probably very similar to what you'd see in a motel or hotel. Okay, it's got the cord and plug on it, all right? And it wants to know what is the maximum length of the supply cord. Okay, so we've identified the triggers here. All right, now, something I'll tell you right off the bat. If you already know the answer to this, I tell people all the time, when you prepare for an electrical exam, you want to do it and use something that I call the 3-wave method. Whereas you go through quickly and answer every question that you know right off the bat. You know the answer. So you're going to answer it and then move on to the next question, okay? If you hit a question and you don't know the answer within 60 seconds or so, and you kind of get that nervous feeling like, oh, I haven't found it, you'll know. Then you want to mark it and then go to the next question. Please don't dwell on a single question and watch that clock start ticking away. You're going to get more cracks at it, but there's a systematic way to study, and we call it the 3-wave method. That video is available over on Fast Track's Tube if you want to go watch it, but it talks about how you should tackle an exam, how you should get the easy questions out of the way, mark the ones you don't know, and then you'll go through a second wave. And when you do answer one of the questions that you didn't know in the first wave, you uncheck it electronically and you move on to the next question. And you keep on going. You save calculations for the end, unless it's a total separate exam for calculations like in Texas. Then you use the same process in order to move through that exam, okay? So just remember that. There is a method to the madness. Encourage you to watch our video on that. We've been preaching that for well over 35 years, okay? So, all right, let's get back to this question. All right, so that's what we're done. Now, you may know the answer, and like I said, if you know the answer, you can go on and select your answer. But we're gonna dissect this sucker. So the first thing we know is that we don't need to look up anything about maximum length yet. We're not really looking at anything for the supply cord. The focus is what? What's the root? It's an air conditioner. So we know that air conditioners are in what? Article 440. Now, if you don't know that, I'm going to encourage you to do something, okay? And again, this is going to sound like a sales pitch, but over on our website, we have a very inexpensive flashcard module that you can get that really is great and nifty. It works great on the mobile, but it allows you to get really familiar with all of the articles. So you can just start rattling them off. Well, this one is straightforward. It's talking about air conditioning. And so if you know that Article 440 is dealing with air conditioning and refrigeration, then you know you're going to be in 440. Now, but where in 440? You know it's not an outside condenser. It's not those type of things. It didn't ask you about disconnects for an air conditioning unit. It just asked about the length of the supply cord, okay? So now we're going to get into, we have some key things to look up. But now what we're going to do is I'm going to show you, and we're going to take our time, and we're going to methodically look at the index in the NEC. Now, trust me, you're going to get quicker over time, especially if there's something you get and you just don't know. You're going to have to use the index. You've got plenty of time for each question as long as you don't have wasted time in there where you're just flipping needlessly, trying to flip through all of Article 440. Don't want to do that. Okay, so let's go to the code. So here we are. This is in the code. And let's just go show you real quick. So 440, you can go to the table of contents to get 440 if you choose. But here we are in 440 right here. Okay, you see where it says air conditioning and refrigeration equipment. Now, I will tell you this. If you are looking at the table of contents, then you can look at each one of the parts, right? Because this is very specific about a room air conditioner, right? But you can look at the different parts, but we can also go to the index, and you could have looked under room air conditioner, or you could start with just looking under air conditioner, okay? Either one is liable to send you back and forth. And again, this is where I want you to take your time and go through the question. And again, I'm going to say this because inevitably I get somebody in the comments, okay, somebody like Jackerson, who will say something like, Paul, you spent 10 minutes on that question. How are they supposed to learn? They only get 2 minutes because you didn't listen. You don't time yourself until you get down to the last 2 weeks before your exam. Prior to that, you use these database questions to learn the index, learn how to dissect a question, learn how to pick out keywords. This is going to make you much more proficient on your exam. Now, are you going to get quicker at it? Absolutely, because when you get down to the last 2 weeks, now you're going to use the database questions. And again, our database has hundreds and hundreds of questions broken down into practice exams and then 3 detailed final exams of 100 questions each. Trust me, you'll get plenty of practice questions to save to the end, but the dissection is where it matters, okay? So let's go into the code. Now, what I'm going to do is I will go to the table of contents, and here you look under air conditioning, and here you see air conditioning. We see room air conditioner, and that is under part 7 of 440. Now, you don't see anything under supply cord here, and that's okay. We just need to take a look at how many sections are in here. Well, in this right here, this part 7, it looks like this .62, .60, .63, .61. Okay, so to me, folks, I'm going to immediately just go to part 7. But remember what we said, you're learning right now, and you want to see what is actually in the index. Okay, so let's go back and take some time and just see what exactly is here. So I'm going to look under supply cord. I'm going to look under cord. I'm going to look under room air conditioner. Okay, I'm going to look at those things. So I'm here, and so while I'm here, I'm going to go on and look at cords real quick and see what might be under cord since I'm here. And this is going to also help you learn what is and what is not in the index for future reference. Okay, so let's see if there's anything to do with cord here. All right, so we're going to go here. And there's in. Okay, let's keep going. And there's in. Okay, so we're going down a little further. There's in. Okay, cords. We have cords. We have cord connectors. Let's see here. Under cords. Now, notice something how this is bold, but then these are kind of offset a little bit. That means they're cords, but these are the specific cords they're talking about. Okay, so here's cords. Okay, and also go down here. Let's see, flexible air conditioning cord right there, 440.64. Right? You see that right there? 440.64. So that's one place. So we're going to write that down. Also, I should remind you to do this. When you're preparing like this, you have your scratch paper the same way that you would be in the exam. You're going to jot down. So I might have a piece of scratch paper and I might go 440 is the main top. And then I might do .64. And that is the specific section underneath it I want to look at. But remember, we're learning all the ways that we could use this index. So let's keep going. All right, so we found something under cord. Now, let's see if there's anything under supply cord. So let's go to S real quickly. And I won't do this in depth for every question, but I do want to set tone here for this first one. All right, so let's go to S and let's go on down here. And this will be a lot easier for you when you're using your code book because you just can flip through it. The electronic version sometimes can be a little tedious. Okay, so let's see here. So we're going to go, here's supports. Let's see, supports, surface. Okay, nothing under that for supply cords. Okay, so the next we're going to go down is to room air conditioner because we already looked under air conditioner and that told us part 7. So let's go under rooms. Let's go back real quick. I'll go under room. Let's go back up, see what we might have under room. Okay, so here's ours, right? Or here's rooms. And let's see what we got here. Here we go, room air conditioner. But what is it doing? Let's see if it has anything up here. No. So it's sending me where? To air conditioners, room. Because first and foremost, folks, it's an air conditioner. It just happens to be a room air conditioner. Okay, so that's why I went to air conditioner first because, again, dissecting it, what are we talking about? We're talking about an air conditioner. It just happens to be a room air conditioner. Okay, but as you can see, there's many ways to find it. Now, this would have sent us back to A's, and A would have sent us to part 7, 440. But we also have a reference here of .64, so we're just going to go jump to that. Okay, because we also noticed that there's not many sections under part 7, right? So let's go on back to that. And we're back here at the question. So let's go on and get over to here. And there is 440.64. Now, real quickly, notice there's a 10-foot and a 6-foot. Now, why am I pointing this out? Because to be honest with you, you also want to use the questions to help trigger as you're doing bold scanning. Now, what's the difference? What's bold scanning? Real quick, let me talk about it. So bold scanning is when you're going to go to the index or you're going to go to the code and you're going to start just bold scanning the main headers and you're going to kind of look for these trigger words in the bold headings and you're going to be looking for it. So I might be looking for air conditioner. I might be looking for supply cord, that type of thing. So let's assume that we didn't get sent to 440.64. Let's assume that we didn't see anything under chords and we went straight to part 7 like it said. Let's show you how bold scanning works. All right, so here we are. Let's go on and get back to right here. Okay, so here's part 7. So bold scanning would be this. I know that we're talking about supply chords. We're talking about length. We know that the questions, and again, I'll show you that. We know that in the question, we have 4 feet, 6 feet, 8 feet, 10 feet. So all those things should be in the code language. And we're talking about the length, and it's a supply chord. All those type of things, right? Okay, all those things need to be floating around in your head because now I'm going to bold scan. Nothing in there is germane. We're not talking about grounding. The question's not about branch circuit, and it's nothing in there that has anything to do with that lengthwise. Okay, nothing here, nothing here. We're not talking about disconnecting means. Boom, supply chord. Immediately I see a 10 and a 6. Be careful because the 10-foot one only applies to 120 volt rated. And remember in our question, the question was a 240 volt room air conditioner, right? Important to remember that. So we go back here. So it says, or 6 feet for a nominal 208 or 240 volt rating. Okay. So boom, we get back to the question. That's a no-brainer. Then we know that the answer is 6 feet. And there's our code reference, 440.64. Pretty straightforward, right? All right. Go to the next question. All right. A feeder for 2 3-phase, 208 volt, 25 horsepower motor requires how many amps? Okay, so this is a very important question, and questions like this will most certainly appear on the electrical exam. One of the things you have to understand is this is not so much a lookup in the index, is you need to understand motors. Now, we have a motor video series that's available over in Fast Tracks 2. But that motor video series is also available in our Fast Tracks program because you need to understand sizing motors. And since this is a feeder, the feeder is going to take into consideration both of these motors, okay? And is a specific way that we do it with an FLC of 1 motor, right? And then the other motor at 125%, okay, the largest motor. But you got to know where to go to do this. Now, this is in it. The first thing we know, we're talking motors, right? So one way to do this is that when you talk about motors, there's what's called a pictogram available in Article 430. So what we want to do is go look at that pictogram. So let's go look at it and get an idea of what it is. So I'm over here. So again, we know it's motors. So if I just go right to motors, right here, I see I've got this nice little nifty drawing right here, okay, that's going to help me. But I also have here, okay? So here we're looking at what we need to look for here, all right? So here's a motor's feeder short circuit, okay? And here's a motor's short circuit. Here we go, motor and branch circuit overload protection. All these little things are right here where we need to find conductors, right? Here's motor circuit conductors, okay? 430.21 through 430.29. Okay, so it says motor circuit conductors. Why is that important? Well, it wasn't specific about branch. It wasn't specific about feeder, but it is talking about the circuit conductors. In our case, we're talking about feeder. But check this out. Let's go down and look at the graphic or the illustration, right? So let's go on down here. And here we see kind of a layout of everything here, right? So here's your branch circuit protection, everything right here. We're looking for conductors. So for the conductors right here, motor feeder conductors right here. See it? Motor feeder conductors. Part 2. Go back up here, right here, motor circuit conductors, part 2. All about the conductors, okay? So we're just going to go where? We're going to go immediately to part 2. And in here, we're just going to go right here to part 2 in motors. So let's go on and do that. So we're going to just jump all the way down and go right to part 2. All right, here we are, part 2. Okay, so the first thing we're doing is bold scan. Well, one of the things that we realize is that we have multiple motors. We have two three-phase motors, okay? Not a single motor. So when we're bold scanning, we're looking for something that's going to deal with multiple motors, and we're staying with the concept of we're sizing conductors at this point, feeders, okay? So let's go look. So here you're starting out right here, okay? And we're not talking about a single motor. So dot 22 is if you have a single motor. Keep on going. None of this is germane. None of this is germane. Keep on getting it. That is not germane. Keep on going. Boom. Serval motors or motors and other loads, okay? Because you can't have a motor and another load, or you can have multiple motors. In our case, we have multiple motors. Now, what does it say? Conductors supplying serval motors, in our case, we have two, shall have an ampacity not less than the sum of each of the following. So it's 125% of the FLC rating of the highest rated motor as determined by 430.6a. And then it says the sum of the FLC current rating of all the other motors in the group. All right. So real quickly, let's talk about group. What does group mean? Well, if I have, in this case, I have two three-phase motor. They're both 208 volts. So they're going to be both using the same phases, A, B, and C for both. So they are in the same group because they're sharing the same phases. Okay. So that's what we mean by in the same group. Okay. So we have to account for both these motors. Now, the next thing it says we have to do is that we need to find the FLC. That is full load current. Now, if you've been in our program or you've been training, then you know that the FLC is a table that's in the back of 430. And that's covered in 230.247, 248, 249. All of those are going to give you the FLCs. Okay. Not the nameplate on the motor. We're going to use that for overloads or some unique type of motors later in some training. But when we're doing FLC, we have to use those tables. That's going to give us the full load current. So let's go back to the code book and remember what we're dealing with. Well, first, let's make sure we write down what we're dealing with. We have three-phase motor, 208 volts, and they're 25 horsepower. Okay, so let's go on and get the stuff that we need to work this out. We already know what we're supposed to do. So now we're going to go down here and we're going to go to 230.248 and 247 and all that. We're going to get all the way down to there. All right, so we're going to get to the tables. All right, so we're down here. And which table do we want to work with? Well, 247 is direct current, so we're not going to be using that. Let's see here, 248, that is single phase. No, we're not worried about that one. 430, 249, full load current for two phase. Are we using that? Absolutely not. That's not where we're at. Keep going. Boom, right here. 430.250 is the full load current for three-phase alternating current motors. And what were we dealing with? All right, let's go on and get this down a little bit, and I'll move it over. Okay, so what we're dealing with is 208. So this one right here. So this is the column we're going to be in right here. And what we're dealing with is a 25 horsepower. So let's remember, we're in this column. I'll keep the mouse in there so we don't lose where we're at. And we're dealing with 25 horsepower. So it's 74.8 amps. Make sure you write that down. 74.8 amps is what it is. Okay, so now let's go back to the question. Now, since both these motors are exactly the same, what did it tell us to do in 430.24? It said take the largest motor. They're both the same. So we'll take the largest motor at 74.8 amps. Got your calculator. And we're taking that at 125% because that's what it said in 430.24. So I'm going to take the 74.8 times 1.25. And that's going to give me 93.5. So I'm going to write that down. Plus the sum of the other motor, which is exactly the same type of motor. So that was another 74.8. So I'm going to take that 93.5 plus 74.8. And that's going to be 168.3. Again, 0.3 we can drop. And one thing to remember, looking at the question, you should not be saying, well, I don't see the answer is 168.3. You always choose the best possible answer. And in this case, the 0.3 can be dropped, and we're just looking at the 168. So boom, right there, right? And there's your code reference, 430.24. 1 and 2, and also you have to understand how to do the tables back in 430.250 for three-phase. Okay, so again, 430.250 is something you need to get familiar with when it comes to finding the FLC. Same thing with single phase. Same thing if you're dealing with DC motors. You need to get familiar with 430.247, 248, 249, and 250. Most certainly. Okay. And you also need to get familiar with 430.251 if you're going to be dealing with fire pumps and other things like that as well, which we will cover in other episodes, but you most certainly will cover it in our Fast Tracks program. We do cover fire pumps. All right. All right. You did good. So let's go on to one more question in this series. Okay. All right. The next question we have is, let's go here, make sure I'm seeing the screen. Okay. It says live parts of a generator with a voltage of more than blank volts shall not be exposed to accidental contact or accessible to qualified persons. Okay, so the first thing that you see this, you're thinking, what is the root? What are we talking about here? Well, obviously, we're talking about generators. Well, if you don't know what article generator is, and I'll remind you, we have a flashcard program over on fasttracksystem.com that you can use to learn the different articles so that you can start just rattling them off. But you should know this is Article 445. If you did not know, of course, you can go to the table of contents in the NEC and look quickly and you will see it. Just remember that it is under Chapter 4 because it's 445 is the specific article. Okay, now, we also can say, all right, what is it asking about live parts? So just for fun, let's go over to the NEC and say, okay, well, let's say, what if we want to look in the table of contents? What if we want to look under, let's see here. Let's say we want to go under generators, okay? And we don't know. Let's say we didn't know. And I encourage you to look up everything, okay? This is why you're studying. It's not about how fast. You know, personally, folks, when you buy database questions, you should not be in a hurry to answer all the questions. You should be doing exactly what I'm doing, dissecting it. If you get a really good database, a really good one, then you'll have plenty of questions for those last 2 weeks to hone those speed, to get fast. Right now, moving you in and out of the code book. That's what you're trying to do, using the index. Also, you'll be surprised if you wait to do these questions towards the end of your actual Fast Track System program, that you will be answering a lot of these questions without even having to go to the index. That should be a telltale sign that you are learning the National Electrical Code because you're able to answer them without having to look them up. Trust me, there's a method to the madness. Just stay focused. All right, so here we're back here. So let's go under generators. And let's see here. Let me move it back. All right, so we're under, let's see here. Let's go under G. And we'll start at G here, and we'll see what we can find. All right, here's generators. Okay, so we know that generators is 445. Now, you see how these are kind of offset? That means all of these fall under generator. Okay, so let's see here. So the question, let's kind of look back at the question. The question is asking about live parts. So it's exposure, accessibility, all these kind of questions. So let's see if there's anything under generators that may help. I will also remind you at this time, this would be a good time to remind you that generator is not a big article. So bold scanning can be your best friend. So it might be even easier for you just to go to 445 and start bold scanning and look for live parts. Look for accessible. Look for the term unqualified persons. Look for all those type of things, exposed. Those are trigger words as you're bold scanning. You're not reading the entire thing verbatim. You're basically just speed reading it, looking for these key triggers. And don't forget, even the answers here, okay, of voltage ratings, 50, 75, 100, and 150 can be in when you're bold scanning that might trigger you to stop, okay? These are techniques that you will get better over time, trust me. All right, so let's just see what we've got. So here's generator. And I'm looking down and to see if there's anything in here that's dealing with live parts or anything that remotely get us where we need to be. Okay, well, I see something that's pretty close. It says guards for attendance. So I'm going to jot that down just because it's probably somewhere around there. So I'm just going to jot. Doesn't mean that's it, but it's got something to do with guard. So it's going to get me there, somewhere in there. All right, so I'm going to keep looking and look to see what I might see. And okay, location. All right, so I might be something that gets me somewhere. But I'm going to look down and see if there's anything else that I need. All right, terminal housing. Okay, so maybe that's where the parts are. So I might write that down as well. I just might write 445. I've already got that, so I might do .17. I know I'm going to somewhere in there, but one thing I am noticing quickly is that they're not a lot. Notice it's .45. There's no like .100 or whatever. So I'm going to use my bold scanning skills, and I'm going to go to 445. So let's do that. So let's share this. I'm going to go here, and I'm going to go to 445 because that's probably, I have identified that it's not a big article. Also, while you're here, you also can bold scan here and look at all these listings as well. Okay. Protection, boom. First thing I would have hit on is protection of live parts. But we're going to ignore that and just go to 445 and do bold scanning. And what are we looking for? Remember, live parts. Okay. We're looking for anything about unqualified persons. We're looking for a volts rating. We're looking for all that. So let's go. So listing, nope. Location, nope. Markings, nope. Not part of our question. Overcurrent protection, didn't ask about that. Ampacity of conductors, didn't ask about that. We're asking for a voltage rating. Protection from live parts, boom. Immediately, I see 50 volts. I see 60 volts. I see all that. And I see accidental contact. And I see unqualified person. So I know I'm in the right place. Okay. Now, focusing on the question. It says, live parts of a generator with a voltage of more than blank volts shall not be exposed to accidental contact where accessible to unqualified persons. Now, somebody will say, Paul, I can't answer this question because the answer is 50 volts or 60 volts. Well, look at the question. Yes, it's true that there isn't 60 volts for DC and 50 volts for AC. Yes, the question didn't say AC, but the answer is there. There is no 60. There's a 50. So look, you're going to get questions on exams that are not perfect. Not all exams are going to have perfectly written questions, but you have to be able to look and see what they're asking. Okay. Now, this would have been a bad question if it had, again, 50 and 60, because then it wouldn't differentiated AC or DC, but it didn't. So it's pretty easy. 50. And there's your reference, 445.14. Pretty straightforward, right? All right, folks, that's enough for today's lesson. I just wanted to show you how to dissect the question, how to work through it. And remember, calculations are one thing. We can teach you calculations in our program. You will definitely learn one family, two family, multifamily, commercial. You'll learn all that. You need to make sure that you hone those lookup skills. You need to get better at it. And our program will help you do that. Also, every one of our units in our course has a very extensive review that you grade yourself. You will get to see how good you're doing. In fact, it comes with an answer key. Let your significant other, your friend, your coworker, let them grade your work for you. You're going to see what you know. Our program is going to really identify what you know and what you don't know, but it is going to prepare you. I don't know of any other exam prep program in the world that is detailed as this program right here. There isn't any. Other people give you questions. Other people give you little books. Nothing like what you get here. And if you get our enhanced program, you're also going to get a collection of videos like this, even with calculations, over on Fast Tracks Tube. So check it out. Hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure you bookmark because we're going to have a lot more videos on all types of exam prep topics. Take care.